Hey everybody, welcome to the second season of the Football Savant podcast. My name is Travis Tyler. I'm a freelance sports writer who just loves talking about sports, and this is the show that I host about college football and the NFL. Today is our college football preview show. I'm pleased to be joined by Dylan Marsh of the Swampy Sports podcast,
What's
and we're
going
going to
on?
be talking about the games from this past weekend in college football, as well as the upcoming season and next week's week one games when more teams will start taking the field. Dylan, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited, man. This is the best time of the year by far.
absolutely. So let's start with what we saw this past weekend. I know you had a particular team that you were impressed by that most people might think is a little crazy, but we'll let
Hey,
you.
I don't care, man. You kidding me? You kidding me? Vanderbilt, the Commodores dropping 63 on anybody? Like, you have to enjoy that when it happens, right?
Exactly.
Um, Vanderbilt, yeah, no, they impressed me. I think that's what stood out the most this week was, they put 63 points up on the board on the road. And you kind of have to mention it's not like they traveled from Nashville, Tennessee to Oxford to play Ole Miss or
Right.
something, right? They
Right.
traveled to Hawaii, right? They're at one of the top vacation spots in the country. They show up, they take care of business, and that athletic quarterback of theirs. I'm kidding me, Mike Wright, dude. Yeah, you look at his stats: 143 passing yards, okay, about 163 rushing yards.
Yeah.
When has
That's
Vanderbilt
impressive.
ever had, dude? Like, it's just fun. You have to enjoy it. Give me crap, throw it at me all you want. I don't care. If when they upset somebody in the SEC this year, again, when I say upset, I mean literally that's if they beat Missouri. That's an upset,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care. If they win an SEC game this year, dude, I'm gonna be excited, dude. When they have an athletic quarterback like that, anything is possible.
Yeah. I think on the other side of that game, like you're used to seeing Hawaii be the team that scores a lot of points and goes up and down the
Yeah.
field on people, right? And you saw them struggling to basically even complete a pass by the time that game was over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was,
SEC baby, it just
yeah,
means more, right?
exactly.
I hate
So-
that.
I think you're not alone in that at all. Um, so the game that I was mostly concentrated on as a Big Ten fan, Big Ten alum here, we tend to watch the doubling games, the week zero games that are always bigger teams that or Power Five teams that otherwise wouldn't nationally be on TV. So that
Yep.
Northwestern Nebraska game, a lot of people are expecting big things from Nebraska. Northwestern comes in, gets that upset. It was I was very impressed by a lot of Northwestern's offense in that game with their offensive line. Basically kept a clean pocket the entire time. The running backs ran for over 200 yards, almost 100 each. Um, and a couple touchdowns. And then Ryan Holinski, who hasn't he's when he was in the SEC playing for South Carolina, he looked okay, but for since he's been at Northwestern, he hasn't had that kind of
Yep.
game, and he breaks out for a 300-yard passing game. I thought that was really nice to see for them, especially it's even year Northwestern. They kind of got this whole mantra now of it's an even year. We're going to be okay in the Big Ten, especially since they've been to the Big Ten championship each of the last
Yeah.
even numbered years.
Yeah.
So
And
it,
I think one thing people don't bring up enough too, though, is think Fitzgerald is, dude, he's one of the most slept on coaches because he coaches at Northwestern.
yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
the fact he hasn't left for another job that he could easily get, I don't know. He's trying to build something there. And I don't know if you can,
Right.
but
Yeah.
he is
And
one hell of a football coach.
yes, it's one of those cases where it helps that it's his alma mater that he
Yeah.
is
Mm-hmm.
coaching, because it's really hard to get someone to go away from the school that they played
Yeah.
for, and that they like he's one of the better players in their history in terms of their college football program.
Yeah. And like, how funny is it that you have Fitzgerald, who's beloved by the Northwestern alums, right? And going up against Scott Frost, who is like close to being just completely like erased from any type of history he ever had
Right.
at the University of Nebraska with how he's coaching right now. That's crazy to think about. Like beloved and honestly, like I'm going to say probably hated right now, especially after that game, all the hype, all that stuff, man.
Oh yeah.
That was disappointing.
All the analysts picking Nebraska to suddenly win the Big Ten West, and that doesn't look very good right now.
Exactly. And but before we move on, I just want to bring this up because I was actually talking about this with somebody the other day, and I think all that happens. It always happens with Nebraska, Texas, and Notre Dame.
Yes.
The preseason hype, right? And the reason why, it's nostalgia, man. It's college football. And well, I will say this too, though. College football is always like better. Like I'm an OU fan, right? Texas, I hate them. But I admit that when Texas, Nebraska, and Notre Dame are all doing well at the same time, college football is just better, like even like Penn State, Miami, teams like that. There's big brands in the 90s. That's when college football is at its, best because those are the teams that have the money, the facilities, the resources to compete with Ohio State, Bama, stuff like that. If they're actually able to get coaches like those teams have, the preseason hype sucks every year because I fell for it, dude. I fell for it. Nebraska going to beat the crap out of Northwestern, but it is what it is.
It can be considered the Nebraska hype, but also Northwestern coming off of that, how bad they were last year. You didn't think they're going to give anybody any problems.
Yeah.
So
maybe Helinski is the reason. Maybe he's the turning point. You never know.
I mean, they have had quarterback issues. That has been one of the things.
Yep.
So back to the Scott Frost before we move on to other things around college football. How much more pressure is on him now? Like how much longer does he last?
Dude, I actually heard this today, and it makes 100%. Makes so much sense why he was not left in Ireland, right? If USC does it to Kiffin, Nebraska definitely does it after this game. But I think October 2nd, he gets fired because October 1st is in his contract where his payout is cut in half.
Oh, okay.
So I think they wait probably half the season. They're probably going to see where they're at. I think for him to save his job, they are going to have to put not just beat OU. Let's say if they beat Oklahoma, right, in Lincoln in 3 weeks, say if they beat them by 14 points, close game. Oh, that's a big win. That's awesome, right? But let's say if they just keep losing after that, he's gone. Yeah. If they put just an absolute just ass whooping on the Sooners, I think that's the point where it's impressive enough he buys himself another year. But I don't see that happening. I don't think if Oklahoma beats him, no matter what, he could win the next 4 or 5 games, and then after that, October 2nd, the dude's going to be gone.
He's basically one bad loss away from getting the axe. He's unless they blow out Oklahoma, which isn't going to happen. He's they have a couple really winnable games before that. If they happen to lose one of those, it might happen after that. Honestly, but
I'm actually looking to see here their next game. Okay, so let me ask you this. Their next game is at home against North Dakota. They lose to North Dakota. Do you think they just pay the full payout because they're sick and tired of it? Or do they still wait until October 1st to get it cut in half?
See, for me, that's a bad enough loss to justify paying the whole thing.
Right?
It's not North Dakota State that's actually beating people. It's North Dakota who's
exactly
very average FCS program. So that would do it.
I would say the other big team they have in their schedule is Michigan. If somehow they beat Michigan, but I don't think he sticks around for Michigan.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's of the season.
That's a late game.
Yeah.
He's in a really.
He should have never left Central Florida. I know why he did, but he should never left. He was close to, honestly, in Central Florida is probably Disney God Scott Frost. That's probably the order stuff was down there for sure.
Yep, they declared themselves national champions. They were good enough for that. So, all right, let's get into some of the stuff around, the general headlines around the season. Pretty much, big headline this summer was USC, UCLA, all leaving the Pac-12 and all this realignment stuff coming back up. How much more do you think we're going to see, and how quickly does it happen?
I don't like it. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't like the fact, being an OU fan, I didn't even like the fact that we're going to the SEC. It's grown on me now, but when it first happened, I was, holy hell. But like, I don't like the realignment. I'm the person that loves, just college football how it was. And like, like from 2007 to 2012, right? Like that era of college football.
Okay.
But, it looks like the SEC, the Big Ten, they're going to be the super leagues, right?
Yeah.
With the Pac-12, Big 12, ACC, being like the new like group of five, I guess, if you will, from that. But I don't think it moves. I don't think anything's really going to happen now until, because I know we're going to talk about this later, but I don't think anything's going to happen until Notre Dame decides what they're going to do.
Okay.
I think
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because no conference is going to, outside of the Power Five, is going to take a chance on taking any other team and missing out on Notre Dame coming in.
Right. Especially with that national brand and
exactly
their whole TV contract and everything.
Exactly. And, I'm not sure, because I know, what does that mean for Notre Dame, right? Like Notre Dame, the amount of money they make right now, it's definitely not like they make more money than they would if they joined a conference. They with NBC. But think about it this way: let's say if I know I'm kind of jumping into other questions, but like I said, everything revolves around Notre Dame right now.
Yes.
So if you think about it this way, is Notre Dame everything in life is about money, right? Especially in college football.
Yeah.
But in Notre Dame's case, it's you can get all this money, be this national brand, have your own pretty much TV network, just doing everything for you, or you join one of the 2 or 3 super conferences that honestly might break off at some point and create their own national championship. Do you want to keep this money, or do you want to have a chance at actually beating the best of the best to be known as the actual national champion?
Right.
Which is more important to Notre Dame? Most people are going to say money, but you have a program in Notre Dame with all this prestige,
all the history and everything. Yeah.
The ego might have to say, no, screw that. We can still make a crap ton of money, especially with this new TV contract that's going to be coming with these super leagues.
Yeah.
It's just kind of up to them. Everyone's just waiting on Notre Dame to see what they're going to do. We might not know for like 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So
it's a long, dragged out process. What if you had to pick a lane that they're gonna choose? Where do you see Notre Dame going?
It's going to be one of these two. I think it's either going to be the Big Ten, because that's where they are geographically located, right?
Yeah.
But they always play like Michigan,
right? They got the rivalry
this year. Yeah, but they also played in the ACC for a year during COVID.
Right.
The ACC, I will say, if Notre Dame goes to the ACC and the ACC keeps adding people, having that national brand will be just like the Big 12 having Texas and OU.
Yep.
Because Notre Dame, I think, is a bigger brand than those two already combined, because of the church being a part of that, all that stuff. So I would say ACC or Big Ten for sure, but it just depends on what they're looking for. More challenge in Big Ten. ACC, if they go there, they would definitely be a lot more relevant, but it'll be a lot easier as well. But more than likely, Big Ten.
Yeah, I would say so. That especially with their relationship with NBC and the Big Ten's new contract with NBC and all.
See, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. The new Big Ten contract includes NBC Saturday night games for the Big Ten and games on Peacock.
Wow.
So
all the Notre Dame games are going to be
during
the day. unless they're playing on the prime time. Oh wow.
Right. So and then like you said, they got the rivalries with Michigan, Michigan State,
Yeah.
Ohio State, Purdue, the teams that used to play all the time that just haven't been happening recently.
That makes me think it's already in the works of going to the Big Ten if NBC is part of it.
That's exactly what I thought when they announced the new TV deal. We covered realignment. What about the college football playoff? What does the future of the college football playoff look like for you?
I mean, I was gonna say, if it were me, if I were in charge, I'd get rid of that. I'd get rid of it.
Okay.
Maybe, back to the BCS, No, I'm kidding. I was really excited when it moved to the playoff. I just hated the fact that OU went 0-4 in it. But I think expansion is needed for sure. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be this team was left out, and we could literally have the bracket of 64 like they do in NCAA basketball, and someone's still always left out. I would say 8's probably the perfect number if there is one. So you don't have to. I guess you can say like change up the actual schedule of college football to make up for those extra games. Because it's just 2 extra games, and you can always play those on New Year's. But I think the more you expand it, the more meaningful bowl games are actually going to be. But then also less meaningful the Gator Bowl is going to be. Stuff like that. Tax Slayer and macaroni, Kraft mac and cheese bowl, stuff like that. No one cares about that now. But I don't even see those sticking around. Unless they do break off and create their own different championships, stuff like that. But I think 8 teams, if they go past 8 teams, that's when it's going to get a little bit too much, if that makes sense.
I think at that point, it gets a little harder to determine who's going to be in it and how much the group of 5 teams get, how much representation they get in there.
Exactly.
In the other way, you can, with the 8 teams, you can have the 5 Power 5 champions and, a couple basically the 2 best group of 5 teams or the best group of 5 champion and a couple at large bids.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. If expansion would just be Power 5 conference champions, and then Cincinnati, and then whoever loses the SEC championship and the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a Northwestern, then they'll probably go Big 12 coach, runner up or something like that. It would just be more to get these bigger brands in. It would be a bit more of wiggle room for more money, bigger market teams. Like Oklahoma loses to Baylor, in the conference championship or something like that. They lose to them by 7. And if there's 8 teams, you get all the conference champions, you get the, American champion in there, then that leaves room to get OU in there or Texas or, any Michigan, stuff like that. That's a way to just get a lot more money in there for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk this year's playoff then. Is Alabama the favorite to win the championship this year?
Yeah, dude. Of course, they are the favorite every single year. Doesn't freaking matter, right? Mm-hmm. I don't care if Alabama lost 2 games. Think about it this way. The year they lost to OU, what was it, 2014 in the Sugar Bowl, I think, when OU somehow beat Bama in the Sugar Bowl. Still a crazy night. That same year, I think they lost 2 or 3 games that year. That way too early, top 25, they were number 1. Right. And the reason why is because they are going to be the favorite every single year because no one has ever been as consistent as they are. So really until Georgia or Ohio State is going to get to their point of reloading and not having small rebuild years, or when Nick Saban finally retires, and that's not even a given with Alabama, to be honest. So yeah, they're definitely the favorite, I think, this year, especially with the defense coming back and Bryce Young. And, they did lose a lot of weapons, but they're bringing back Will Anderson. They're getting apparently it's supposed to be another pass rusher that's going to be better than he is. And his name's Dallas or something. Dude.
They're always
they are easily.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so do you see, you mentioned Ohio State and Georgia, are they also, heavily in your mind, heavily favored to make it that far, or to be the challengers from Bama? Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's something we're talking about later, but Bama's not my champion this year, but they're definitely my
Okay.
favorite. Um, but Georgia, more than likely, it's harder to say if Georgia and Bama are both going to be in the playoff at the same time because they will more than likely play each other in the conference championship, and just depending on how the regular season goes, see if they're in there. But Ohio State, definitely will make it for sure. But that's one thing I like about the SEC with Bama and Georgia the way they are right now. You just never know how it's going to work out. So that's actually pretty exciting this year.
Yeah. Let's how about we'll talk a little bit more about the specific conferences and what you're seeing in across the board there. Start with in the Pac-12. What are your expectations for Lincoln Riley and USC in year one?
I'm one of the few. Okay, when I say I'm one of the few, Oklahoma. Okay, I'm just going to say this because I'll probably get torn apart by all my friends here. Oklahoma has the greatest fan base in the entire country. Okay, there you go. I said it, right? But I'm one of the few that believes Lincoln Riley is still one of the best coaches in the country, right?
Okay.
But when I say one of the best coaches, he's the best offensive mind in the entire country. I don't care who that is. Everyone's saying, oh, Jeff Lebby's now the greatest. No, you just say that because he's with us, right? But Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, and getting Davis there, that's going to be a huge pickup. But a lot of people don't even imagine they got Oregon's. I already forgot his name. They got Oregon's running back from last year. The dude doesn't wear gloves. Tyler, all right, he doesn't wear gloves. He's a badass already.
He's also one of the top 5 or 6 rushing leaders in Oregon history, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and so, but the reason I bring that up is because he is going to have a really good offense, but his defense and offensive line, just like every single year he was at Oklahoma. Again, I'm not trying to down him, but if you look at the statistics, every year he got further away from a Bob Stoops recruiting class, we digressed. Yep. So I think with him being the great offensive mind he is, he's going to be able to possibly run the Pac-12 and do what he did at OU, which is score 50 points but give up 35 every game, especially with Caleb Williams at quarterback. But this year, I think there's going to be a struggle with their offensive line and their defense. I see maybe 9 wins on the schedule. Yeah. They could surprise us. Caleb Williams could take a huge step because he was really good last year, but wasn't amazing. He showed flashes of amazing, incredible plays, stuff like that. If he takes that step this year, they could easily win the Pac-12. He's that type of talent, but I'd say about 9 wins.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a pretty fair assessment, especially, you have a few teams in the Pac-12 that will challenge at the top, but then it just really gets it falls apart the further you look down the standing. It's really, Utah, maybe UCLA or Oregon State to me is a sneaky team in there, and Oregon.
That's it. That's one of my sleeper teams we're going to be talking about right there. Oregon State is going to be very, very sneaky this year.
Yeah. I looking at their roster, I like their team a lot more than I did going into the last week or so. So
you have to definitely look at them and see how many returning starters are actually going to have. That's when you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah. A lot of people are hyping up Utah this year after their late run last year. What are your thoughts on the Utes this year?
No, I think they have a legit shot. I think in my eyes, they're the conference champions. They are. And the reason I say that is because the teams like Oregon State's definitely going to have to prove it before I'm even going to sit there and claim them to be a national or a conference champion. Right. But the 2 biggest threats both have, one is a brand new head coach in Dan Lanning at Oregon, and then USC with Lincoln Riley, with all the weaknesses that they have, right? Skill positions, every Lincoln Riley team is going to have amazing skill players. It's the defense and offensive line you have to worry about. So I think Utah definitely wins it this year because of that. But I could see Oregon challenging them for that Pac-12 championship as well.
Yeah. So you don't see Oregon missing a beat at all between all the changes they've had in the offseason with the coaches and the offensive personnel.
Yeah. When I say don't skip a beat, like they're definitely not going to be where, Cristobal had them in the past
Okay.
2 years. But I think Oregon, it's just that brand of athleticism, right? It's Nike, it's speed, it's flash, right?
Right.
That's what it's always been. And that's what they're still going to have on the roster pretty much.
Right.
But in the next 2 or 3 years, Dan Lanning is going to have that team being one of the best defensive teams in the country.
Yeah. And they
sure.
already have Noah Sewell at linebacker already.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite prospects for next year.
So I don't see them taking a huge step back, but we'll see if Dan Lanning is going to be one of those great coaches that can just get players behind them, or if he's just going to be a pretty good coach that's going to take a couple years to build up his program.
Gotcha. So let's move over to the Big Ten now. The one big question I have there is, since the Big Ten has gone from the leaders and legends to the East and the West, the East has won every single Big Ten championship. So the big question is there a team in the West that can compete with those Eastern teams, or is it just a lost cause?
Not this year. I don't think. The closest would probably be Wisconsin.
Okay.
And the reason I'm hesitant is I think they're only returning like 8 total starters on their team. But the defense is definitely going to be the biggest question. The defense is where it's going to remain one of the biggest threats in the Big Ten. It probably might be one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in that conference. It's definitely the offense is going to be a question mark. But with Braylon Allen, coming in and still going to wreak havoc behind a typical Wisconsin offensive line. We'll see. We'll see if the Badgers can stir something up, but I don't see anybody from the West beating Ohio State. But if something happens, even Michigan.
For me, Wisconsin would probably be that team.
I see your picture behind you, man. Sorry.
Well,
get your Spartans a good head.
I think we'll have a good year. I'm not ready to put us that far yet, but for Wisconsin, I would say that I think they're probably the biggest threat, and they're the best team out in the West. Biggest question would be Graham Mertz at the quarterback position, because he was really good as a freshman during that COVID shortened season, but then didn't improve at all from year 1 to year 2, and probably even digressed a little bit. I don't.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that assessment. Yeah.
So, he needs to be much more of what he was as a freshman for them to really have the season they're capable of having.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's go to the ACC. Then is Clemson going to return? Let's start there. Is Clemson going to go back to what they used to be?
You hope so, right? Unless you're like me and I get too invested into college football and I start feeling like a personal connection with how people are, and how Dabo Swinney is probably one of the greatest people on earth. You hope you hope he returns, but I don't see anybody beating them besides maybe Miami. That's if Cristobal can get Miami going in 1 year, but DJ, I never try to pronounce his last name. Quarterback for Clemson. He was highly touted, right? And he's a good quarterback, and he turned it on late last year.
At the end.
But the reason nobody says he's any good is because the dude has to follow Trevor Lawrence, for crying out loud, right?
Yeah.
And the dude's not Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is like a 6'6", skinny surfer, blonde haired, flowing through the wind, 400 yards a game. And this dude's like 6'4", 260 pounds, like a Tim Tebow type quarterback. So they're completely different. And I don't think Clemson I don't think they schemed to suit his talents, if that makes sense. He's got a good arm, but the dude's a bowling ball. Right. So maybe they're making sure he's not going to get hurt. I don't know. But I think if they scheme around, DJ there, I think that could definitely give them the leg up to probably even make the playoff. But the big thing is Brent Venables leaving to go coach OU, because he was regarded for years as the greatest defensive coordinator in the country.
Yep.
And then Dan Lanning came along, and Kirby Smart was in that for a while too. So we'll see if they take a dip in defense, but I could see Dabo kind of staying the course, and I wouldn't be shocked if you see Clemson in the playoff this year.
Okay. So from what I've seen in the conference predictions, it's always been Clemson or Pitt winning the conference, and you mentioned Miami, if Cristobal gets everything going right, could be in there. Is there anybody else that we're forgetting to talk about in the ACC, or is that it?
Wake Forest was kind of up there, but then unfortunately, their star QB there went down with a non-football illness, so that's like one of the most unfortunate things you'll ever see, especially for a team like Wake Forest. All that hype going in there, definitely going to be a top 25 team, and now just, one player can drop you out of that. Pitt, I don't believe in Slovis. I just don't.
No.
Especially at Pitt, losing, Jordan Addison.
They don't have any receivers.
I don't see that. So I think Miami's the only threat to win the Big 12, the ACC, other than Clemson this year.
Okay. And another thing that the ACC did was, I think it's starting this year. They're eliminating their divisions and going just with the top two.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the right approach to take, and is that where most of the conferences are going to start follow? Are they going to follow suit?
You would think so, and it works. It seems great for some conferences, and some conferences it doesn't, right? And you start seeing it in the Big 12. And the reason it's awesome in the Big 12, and it would also be great in the SEC and, like the Big 10, because think about it this way. Big 12, you have midway through the season, you have OU, Texas, right? Year Kyler Murray, what was it, 2019? Texas barely beats OU, and then we meet up again in the conference championship, and you have that huge rivalry for even bigger stakes in a revenge game. That's awesome. That's what you want, for TV ratings, money, all that, right? Big 10. Imagine if, Ohio State and Michigan somehow, hope they don't play, hopefully they change it around, they play somewhere in the middle of the season, happens, and then they meet each other in the Big 10 championship. Imagine the freaking just chaos that would be with what's on the line.
Yeah.
Imagine seeing Bama and Auburn SEC championship, Bama, LSU twice a year, Bama, even Georgia twice a year, because if you're going to be able to, but if they're going to be doing this whole Super Leagues thing, it's not going to work out because you can't play all 16 teams.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if that happens, it's definitely not going to work. But if for the, Pac-12, Big 12, stuff like that, I could definitely see that sticking around, but not for like the SEC or Big 10, even though it would be pretty badass.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't, because you have like the divisions to where, like, let's say with, like the ACC, even the SEC, right? They have equal counterparts on each side, making it an interesting conference championship, like ACC. You want to see that conference championship every year because you don't know what you're going to get, but it just kind of, it sucks that that's probably not going to happen with the Super Leagues, but it could really create a lot of interesting football, and especially the more competitive conferences.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, based off of the Big 10 championship last year. You had, Michigan and Ohio State were clearly the best teams in the conference, and you had Michigan going up against an Iowa team in the championship that was basically sixth or seventh best in the conference and really stood no chance.
Well, everyone knew Michigan, Ohio State was the big.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So it was just like basically there was almost no point to playing that game at that point.
Exactly.
So I would think that they would follow suit there. We are starting to run short on time, so let's.
I was gonna be like, hey, there's usually a time limit.
Yeah. So let's jump ahead quickly to this weekend. What's the matchup that you're looking for? You're looking forward to the most?
Yeah, man. Of course, the biggest game I'm looking forward to this week is Georgia, Oregon.
Okay.
And that's just because you think about it this way. Georgia more than likely is going to, I think, give them a nice licking. But you never know. You got Dan Lanning. And like we said, we don't know how Dan Lanning's going to have this team ready. We don't know how he's going to have it prepared. But he knows how Kirby Smart prepares for big games, right? He's been with him for the past couple of years. That could be something. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think a game I'm going to watch, but probably turn off halfway through is going to be Ohio State, Notre Dame, right?
Okay.
Because Notre Dame, again, it's that preseason hype,
Yeah.
They are ranked number 5, right? But I would say don't get fooled there. But then the one I'm definitely going to be watching the entire time, Cincy, Arkansas. That's probably my number one game I'm more interested in this week, Cincy and Arkansas, because that's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, I like that one as well. I want to see how well Cincinnati responds after last season breaking into the playoff and changing quarterbacks, changing so many defenders on that defense.
Yeah,
it's a different Cincinnati team, and Arkansas I think is going to have a really good chance to take a step up this year with all those guys coming back.
Yeah, I think this game is going to show if Cincinnati can compete with SEC teams. That's not Alabama or Georgia. But this is also going to show, I think, if Arkansas can beat Cincinnati in a good fashion, I think it's going to show that they can be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. And then I guess we'll go, since we're running short on time here, we'll go quickly give us you mentioned Oregon State. You have any other sleeper teams this year?
Yes. I think a huge dark horse to win the Big 12 this year, Kansas State.
Interesting.
Kansas State, they had the most slept on player in college football in Deuce Vaughn, who is Darren Sproles 2.0.
Yeah.
This is his 4th season, Travis, and no one talks about Deuce Vaughn. I see this guy every freaking year, and he is incredible. He is honestly Darren Sproles. Like, that's what he is. Same college, same size, 5'6", 170 pounds, a bowling ball. But you get Kansas State with Darren Sproles, and then you get Adrian Martinez from Nebraska coming in with that athleticism, with Deuce Vaughn, and with his very experienced offensive line and a Chris Kleiman defense. I think
really
Kansas
good
State's
running
a dark
game.
horse. Yeah. I think that they're a dark horse to win the Big 12 this year.